Meeting to order. Start with a roll call. McKee here, Lanterman
Here.
Friedrich,
Here.
Varenkamp,
Here.
and Nichols.
Here.
Alrighty. We'll move right along to the scheduled items, starting with 2A, which is longevity pay.
So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, in order to maintain equity and consistency in practice across the city of Corcoran, longevity pay policy for City Hall and Public Works employees is being presented to the City Council for consideration. In March 12, 2026, City Council approved a longevity pay that was part of the collective bargaining agreement for police officers. And the schedule that was approved for the police officers is being proposed for City Hall employees as well. So staff is looking for direction on the longevity pay policy if the council were to approve it tonight. And the budget implications are included in your packet.
Okay. Does anyone want to lead us out with the discussion? My packet crashed right now and I got locked out with my password. It was working and then it just stopped, so I'm a little confused.
So I do have like two
Yes, please.
questions that
Go for
we can go just question by question.
Perfect.
So the first question, does the City Council support longevity pay for City Hall and Public Works employees?
Okay. Do we want to do each one or do we want to hear both questions and then go into them? Any feedback, guys?
Are we giving our comments or are we answering her question?
That's what I'm asking how we want to do.
Well, to answer her question,
Okay, we'll do it that
I don't support it, and I'm happy to give
Sure, you can
reasons
start.
why. I don't support extending longevity pay to City Hall and Public Works employees, and the reason why, and first I just want to be clear that I do support our employees. I appreciate the work they do, and I believe that all of our employees should deserve fair compensation and competitive benefits. But I also believe that we have an obligation to the taxpayers who fund those salaries and benefits. The money we're discussing tonight does not belong to us, it belongs to the residents. And before we create a new permanent compensation obligation, I believe we have a responsibility to determine why this is necessary. I intentionally requested anonymized compensation information because I did not want this discussion to become about any individual employee. This discussion is about policy, not personalities. When I reviewed the compensation data, several things stood out at me. First, compensation has already increased substantially. The city administrator's compensation increased from approximately $135,000 to more than $183,000 over a relatively short period of time. A senior public works position increased from approximately $119,000 to more than $164,000. An hourly public works employee increased from approximately $116,000 to nearly $148,000. And these are increases ranging from approximately 27% to nearly 40%. Most residents paying the bills here have not seen compensation increases anywhere close to that level. Second, the report shows that public works employees have repeatedly appeared among the highest compensated employees in the city. In some years, a public works employee received total compensation that exceeded both the chief of police and the city manager. Again, this is not a criticism of any employee. Employees receive the compensation structure that the city creates. My concern is the structure itself. I think most residents would reasonably expect the city manager or the chief of police to be among the highest compensated positions in the organization. When a compensation structure produces compensation levels exceeding department heads and executive positions, I think that is a signal that the council should carefully evaluate whether the system remains balanced and sustainable. Third, salary is only part of the picture. For comparison, Medina's published salary schedule shows city manager in and around $140,000. I think that we're in that range. The chief of police compensation is about $170,000 a year. I think that we're comparable to that. And a public works director is around $138,000. Meanwhile, our compensation data shows a public works employee earning approximately $175,000 in total compensation. The compensation report also shows significant liabilities associated with PTO banks, comp time banks, extended leave banks, and separation payouts. In at least one case, accumulated leave liabilities exceeded $70,000 for a single employee. These are real liabilities to the city, and ultimately they become taxpayer obligations. When I step back and I look at the total package, salary growth, overtime, comp time, leave banks, payout obligations, and other benefits, I do not see evidence that Corcoran employees are undercompensated. In fact, I see evidence that many positions are already compensated at levels that compare very favorably with surrounding communities. Which brings me to the fundamental question: what problem are we trying to solve here? The staff report discusses equity and consistency, but equity is not a compensation study. Equity is not a market analysis. Equity is not evidence of a recruitment problem. Equity is not evidence of a retention problem. I have not seen evidence that City Hall or Public Works employees are leaving because of compensation. I have not seen evidence that we are unable to recruit qualified employees because of compensation. And I have not seen evidence that Corcoran employees are being paid below market. What I have seen is substantial compensation growth, significant benefit liabilities, and compensation levels that already appear highly competitive. I also think it's important to remember how we got here. Police longevity pay was negotiated through collective bargaining. The police union negotiated that benefit and the city council approved it. That is very different from automatically extending the same benefits throughout the city. Compensation policy should be established by the council based on facts, market data, and demonstrated need. It should not evolve through assumptions, expectations, or informal promises. At a time when residents are paying higher property taxes, I cannot justify creating another permanent taxpayer-funded compensation obligation without clear evidence that it's necessary. I support our employees, but I also believe taxpayers deserve a council that asks difficult questions before approving additional long-term obligations. Based on the information before me, I do not support expanding longevity pay beyond the police bargaining unit. And just in closing, again, I've not seen evidence that Corcoran employees are underpaid. What I've seen is evidence that Corcoran employees have already received substantial compensation growth and are compensated very competitively compared to surrounding communities. Thank you.
Someone else?
I can go next. I agree with a lot of what Councilor Lanterman said. I think the reason we did the comp and class study was to ensure that we are competitive, and we made a number of adjustments along that line. So I don't think there's a systemic gap between us and neighboring communities. But I do think that the equity concern has a potential long-term ramification that hasn't been discussed so far. So I have some background, given my wife's employment in HR in other public entities from the sidelines. And when you have a combined staff that is comprised of union and non-union employees, if the union employees negotiate a benefit, it's very common that the non-unionized staff would have a similar benefit added so that there's not a dramatic difference between those two groups as a way to mitigate the risk of someone feeling the need to seek out a different arrangement, which could potentially lead to performance issues or longer-term costs to the city that aren't factored into that immediate decision. And so we should be negotiating with our union represented employees with the mindset that whatever we give to that group, we may have to give to everyone. And we shouldn't try to treat them as two entirely separate entities because it is one employee base. And if we try to keep them entirely separated, we just create incentive for the situation to change. And so I would be open to a version of longevity pay. I don't think that we need to have it be a huge amount because we don't see dramatic gaps between us and neighboring cities, and we don't see difficulty in recruitment at this point. But I feel like we need to have the mindset that we're going to treat everybody roughly the same, even if they are union or non-union, and we are cautious in the way we negotiate so that we don't take on liability that we aren't willing to bear universally across the employee base.
Thank you. I would agree with a lot of what you said there, Jeremy, in terms of, and past practice has been to treat the union and non-union employees in a comparable way, or similar way. So I would be in favor of expanding that to the other employee, non-union employees, for a lot of the reasons that Jeremy just stated. I'm trying to remember the second point you had there.
Being careful with what we negotiate with the unions so that we are
yeah, I mean,
willing to give that to everyone.
that kind of goes without saying every time, but yeah, in general, I am in favor of it.
Can you actually do that? Can you actually look at just a union agreement and say this is going to go across the board to all employees? I didn't think you could do that with a union contract. I thought that was specifically for a group of staff.
Sure you can.
But I'm just saying with our mindset, I don't know if that's the right mindset to go into that, because there are differences in those two roles, in all the roles, really. I mean, police face different things every day than public works faces every day because of what their jobs are. And so how do you find an equitable balance on what that looks like?
Right. That's a different question, I think, than can you do it?
That's what I'm saying, though. I think that you can treat them differently. That's my opinion, is that you can treat it differently because it's a separate employment group, separate roles that they do compared to what someone that sits behind a desk does.
Yes, I would agree that you can. I think we're in agreement that you can. It's just whether or not that's the best policy.
Right.
Do we have a policy on that we've discussed as a group? I don't recall specifically addressing that topic.
In discussing topics, one of the guiding principles that we received was that all of the benefits that came through the CBA, there wasn't going to be a carte blanche. That's what I took away. And so if there were going to be benefits, what were the benefits that were identified as most beneficial and impacting the other employee group? And so the longevity discussion, I think I've discussed this before. My first day here in Corcoran, the first people that I discussed longevity with was with the Public Works Group on my very first day. Because they had gone through a similar process to what public safety had gone with the police department in terms of their recruitment and retention. Public Works had gone through a similar process and identified some things of concern for them. And on my first day, I sat down and heard from Kevin what those things were, and longevity pay was it. As I was assessing timing, to the point that Councilmember Nichols made, I had suggested that the best timing to have a conversation about it is if and when it comes up during contract negotiations. And so there was an intentional decision to not bring this up in previous years and to see if it did come up during contract negotiations. And it wasn't part of the initial contract negotiations, like brief, but it did come up during the process. And as we looked at comparable cities, it's very common within the police department realm to have it. And that was a differentiator in us losing some employees in some of the feedback that I'd gotten. But the point that I was trying to make is my introduction in Corcoran to a longevity discussion was not the police department. It was Public Works. And the reason we waited was, to Councilmember Nichols' point, the best time to have those conversations is when council is making decisions about policies, or in this case, contracts, because it's impacting everyone. One other point that I did want to bring up in terms of equity is we do have to submit every 3 years an equity report. And this may or may not, I'm not well versed on all the variables that impact the equity report. But when you have a disparity in different people groups, that can create a problem in the equity report. Is that a fair statement? Yeah. So the equity report that we have to submit to the state, if we have significant benefit differentiators like that, that can really throw off some of the variables in terms of the output on the equity report. I'm not well versed enough to understand all of those variables, but that was part of the conversation with the comp and class as we were having discussions about compression and different types of work and all those things. I remember the conversations regarding equity as being a concern for that report that we have to submit every 3 years.
Mr. Mayor? Jeremy, I appreciate your comments about treating all employees equally. And I guess I would say they're not equal because police officers have unique risks to life and limb every single day that a records clerk would not have. Okay, officer carries gun. There's a reason why they wear bulletproof vests. And I think that that's one reason why their contracts are negotiated separately, because they are unique, they are different, and they should be compensated differently. And I guess I would say, if we're going to treat every employee the exact same way, then I think every employee should make as much as the city administrator and have the exact same benefits as the city administrator. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
I agree, it doesn't make sense.
And yet that's kind of what we're discussing here. So I just wanted to point out that law enforcement officers are being treated differently because their roles, their environments are in fact different.
And there
Make
are
one
things
comment
in
on that, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
go ahead.
So to that point, this being identified as a benefit that was valued to employees, there's so many things that are in the CBA
That are unique.
that are unique to the requirements of the position. Take-home vehicles for all officers when they reach a certain point. We're trying to attract, because we do have recruitment issues, trying to attract laterals, giving credit up to potentially 10 years of prior service in a different agency. I had some of our employees, when we had an employee meeting, ask me about that, and I said that there wasn't a fair way for us, because police officers all have the same standards, they're all post-standard, they have all the same requirements. So it's very easy to assess what they did in a different city that they're going to be replicating in this city. That isn't as easy to do for a city clerk, even a city administrator, or all the other differentiated jobs. And so I use that as an example of we would not be considering bringing that benefit over in terms of giving lateral credit, because we haven't had the same types of recruitment problems, and there isn't a way for us to fairly assess every position. Too time-consuming in order to create the rubric to do that. And so there's numerous examples within the CBA that were not requested. The only other CBA benefit that came over was actually to make it easier for us to account, and that was the rollover for the 1 year of the recruitment and retention dollars. So the myriad of other benefits that came through the CBA have not been a request. So I just wanted to point that out. There isn't an intention or a desire to have it replicated across the board for all city employees. This was the request and the benefit that was discussed.
Thanks for that.
Out of curiosity, what do we spend on attorney fees to administer the agreement we have with the police union on an annual basis?
This year was.
What does it cost
quite
us
a
to
bit.
have that situation?
I don't have the exact dollar
So
amount,
we-
but I can gather that for you.
So I will say, because it went so quickly and it was such a positive experience, it was considerably less than what we had projected. We had done a projection based on past experiences in terms of the length of the time, And we were able to do it in 2 sessions instead of in 6 months. I believe we budgeted $30,000.
Is that roughly the same every year, or is that higher in?
If you only negotiate the contract every 3 years.
I guess my question was broader, though. Like, when we have grievances and things like that, where you're bringing attorneys in, what is the annual cost of running those kinds of processes that we only have because of that?
So
It can
when
vary, but
I
it can be
first started
quite high.
in 2023, going into 2024, the fees were significant because we had a lot of grievances to resolve. Once we got the MOUs in place that resolved, like one MOU resolved 11 grievances because it was a systemic problem and it resolved it. Then we have not had another grievance filed since 2024. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so since we got those MOUs in place, there have been no additional legal fees related to the CBA, except when we went into negotiations in December.
So it can be zero.
It can be 0 or it can be a lot, depending on.
And I think it
scenario?
there's several variables in there, what's going on, what are employees, and how is the organization able to respond and willing to respond. For example, the MOUs that resolved, there was a lot of work that went in collaboratively in order to develop those MOUs, and then council supported those MOUs. If there hadn't been the collaboration, there hadn't been the willingness to support those, that instead of being resolved in 4 months, it could have gone on for the next year. And then it goes to arbitration, and we had done, if you recall, we'd done a projected cost on arbitration. That was part of the consideration of the MOUs. Arbitration gets very, very expensive. So some cities, it is a very significant cost year over year, especially those cities that have a lot of unions. So a close friend of mine is the city administrator in Red Wing, and every employee except for him is in a various type of union. And so since he started in the last year, he's been in constant renegotiation because they're on different cycles if they don't line up. And so he is constantly in process of negotiations, and so they have a labor attorney that is there a lot. Their fees are significant.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Oh, Mark had his hand up first.
Since, I guess I have a question, comparing our salaries to a neighboring city. As I mentioned earlier, Medina's Public Works Director is being paid approximately $138,000, whereas according to our city's compensation data shows that we had a Public Works employee earning approximately $175,000 in a non-supervisory position, and now we're going to put more on top of that? Like, are we going to adjust for our neighboring cities, or are we just going to keep adding on to this?
So the employee that you're referencing is actually a department head, and so they oversee an entire department.
But a director is a department head, right?
Yes.
Well, and in Medina, the Public Works Director earns $138,000 compared to our salary bill of $175,000, and now we're being asked to pay even more than that, and I'm asking why.
Are you asking why you're being asked to pay more, or why the salary is $175,000?
Both.
So we did do a comp and class with the consultant Abdo back in 2024, and it was implemented in 2025. Just based on council feedback, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, the council wanted to not be at the top of the market, but middle of the market.
Yep.
And based on that data, from what we could see, nobody was significantly over what the market was showing us. Does that make sense? So therefore, that is why that employees.
Well, I understand that, but even without adding longevity, we're still above market for that position. And I'm wondering, why are we being asked, how much just, without names, I'm keeping this anonymous. How much money are we talking about on top of what this employee already makes?
For longevity pay?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And any increased pension liability that the city may have?
So the 175,000 that you're looking at, that does include their PTO liability as well.
Yep.
Yep, so it'd be about $13,000 less than the 175,000 that you're referencing.
Okay. But it's still above 138, right?
Correct, you're right.
And now we're putting more on top of that.
To be fair, Medina is one city. When we did comparable cities, there's other cities that we were compared to that make more than that. Medina
A smaller area.
is a different, it is a data point, but it's one of 7 that were considered. And it was probably one of the least compensated ones. So for example, the city administrator is not as experienced and is only in their first year of their role. And so that will change, their compensation will change significantly over the next coming years compared to the past city administrator. When he was there for 12 years, and he was at a different price point.
Well, I did say that your compensation is in fact, is in line with our surrounding cities, as is our chief of police. And the one position that jumps out as not being in line is public works. So I'm trying to understand how that happened, and number 2, why are we putting more on top of that?
So the point that I was making is, I would submit that maybe Medina's not compensating their public works director appropriately, rather than saying that they're setting the standard, because we had 5 other cities that we were compared with.
Maybe we should reach out to them and hire them.
So I do know for a fact that Medina is trying to do a compensation classification study as of recently as well, just due to their salaries not being in line with what the market is.
Have they done that, or they're going
I don't
to?
believe they have done that yet. From
Okay.
what I've heard from a colleague, they are in the process of that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So the proposal that was put into the packet is similar to the program we put in place for our police officers. Looking at page 7 of the packet, there are longevity pay policies for other cities. I'm just looking at the cities that offer systems for non-police, which appear to be Orono and Rogers. Orono has a simpler system where they add 10 cents per hour for each year of an employee's time with the city. Rogers seems to have something like I would equate it to like a holiday bonus based on years of service, $100 a year. Do we know what those kinds of systems would cost in Corcoran relative to the one that is on the table?
We haven't run the numbers on that. We can.
Okay.
I do want to say Medina is one of our comparable cities. They are not included on the list. We reached out to them. They did not get back to us. So we can do some more follow-up if that's something the council's interested in looking at for longevity.
I'm interested in that. I think that that's a great point. Who determines what the comparable cities are? I see
The city
council
council
did.
did.
our city council
Yes.
did?
Yeah.
What year was that?
I believe it was
2024.
24.
Okay.
How are they picked, the comparable cities?
As I recall, we presented 20 different cities that had a whole lot of different variables to them.
Like
And-
lakes?
I don't believe that lakes were part of them because as a distinctive feature, there are some cities that were included that do have lakes. And there are some cities included that don't have lakes. But 20 were identified, and then council worked with the consultant from Abdo there to identify 7. I believe it ended up being 7 that council selected. And as the discussion happened, there were various reasons. Different cities were eliminated and different cities were selected. One of the challenges that we have, if you saw, we are the fastest growing city in the state, and one of the burdens of that is what that means in terms of staff. Medina is also a very fast-growing city, but they're not having the same type of pressures that we are. So we have, if you recall, we've more than doubled in size in the last 5 years. We did just get, oh, Natalie's not here. We just got our Met Council, so Councilmember Friedrich had asked me, we got a data point from that council that said, as of April, their projection right now, we were just shy of 9,800 in April of 2025. So we have exceeded 10,000. But we won't be able to confirm that until the census.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Tonight, we've heard about the cops, we've heard about Public Works. What the group I haven't heard about are our office staff, and I would be interested in better understanding their historical compensation, because I think that they are often overlooked. So if there is going to be follow-up, I would like some details about office staff and their historical compensation.
What's fun about office staff is we, in terms of internal services, have really grown our office staff at council's approval since we did a restructure in 2024. And so in terms of a historical perspective, most people are the first person in their position. For example, Ryan is our first HR person. I think to a person, everyone would testify to the benefit that has been not only to them personally, but to the organization in terms of having a subject matter expert in HR, and then Alicia overseeing that with our IT department. And you'd asked a lot of questions about IT. Our CIT contract in the past, you've had some concerns about that. That's coming down. We have a fantastic guy in Bryce that is doing great work for us now. That has helped us out a lot, and the CIT contract is being looked at because we've been able to provide better touch quality service at a lower cost to our employees. So my point is, from a historical perspective, the city clerk's position has been here, but this is our first assistant city administrator. This is our first HR rep. We have our first IT person. We have our first communications person. We don't have any historical data because they're the first ones there. We had to rely on analysis as we created those positions for what other cities have done in their compensation for those positions.
But we would have historical compensation for like our record clerks and positions like that, right?
So, city clerk, the deputy clerk position is a relatively new position.
And if I could just add just one final comment, and then I'll shut up. I know that the officers had to pay to negotiate their contract. If those benefits are going to be given to other employees, don't you think that they should reimburse the cops for some of the money they had to pay to negotiate?
No, I don't think so, but I get your point.
Why not? They paid and they got the benefit. Now other employees are getting that benefit without having to pay for it.
A benefit, but also sabbaticals, take-home vehicles, other recruitment and retention.
But they paid
benefits.
for that.
Right, and they got it.
Right, but now other employees are getting the benefit of their negotiations. So
should
why
we have no
why
overlapping?
wouldn't they chip in?
I don't think it would be appropriate, but I get the point
Okay.
that you're trying to make.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead.
Number one, thanks, guys. Everybody sitting here listening to us. Appreciate it very, very much. Not right now. Not right now. Don't know if you're able to, but thanks for coming. Okay. I'm from the corporate world. My wife retired from Cargill at 37 years old. Her longevity pay was non-existent. She got to choose a gift out of a book. That one-time gift at 35 years or 37 years was about the value of about $5,000. Not a salary bump, not anything else like this. So the question I agree more so with Mark than Jeremy, but very good points. Very well read, very good deal, all of y'all. We have information in the packet what other cities do on longevity, okay? The corporate world, longevity pay is rewarded by more time off, okay? Once you hit 5 years, you get this many weeks vacation. Once you hit 10 years, you get this many weeks vacation. Once you hit 15 years, and I think I capped out at Boston when I hit 20, I got 5 weeks of vacation every year. The one thing that's missing is, and I see it, I think Mark has brought it up, and I think we've all seen it, is that we've got some people that have a huge bank of personal time off, whether it's identified that as whatever or not. Why aren't they being used? Why isn't it being used? I'd like to examine and look at, and I'm sorry if it seems mean or whatever, I'd like to force time off. People deserve that time that they've earned. So that's another caveat I'd like to talk, or like everybody to think about. To go to a 3% bump, a 6% bump, a 9% bump, once you hit these years and stuff, I think I'm looking at the police side of things. When I go to the other stuff, it's similar and such, but that's 3%, and then all of a sudden they get a 6%, and then all of a sudden they get a 9% with longevity pay. You don't get that in the corporate world. So how many other cities don't do this? And like I said, we see the cities that do it, but we're comparing, in my mind, two things that are completely different. I think in the time that I've been here, I've learned a lot about the police and the people that back them and such, and the union is there for significant reasons in negotiations, those kind of things, but they haven't. The union is there for most police, I think, in the cases of recent history of when a police does something, they are analyzed to the T. They're run through the ringer. Is it a legitimate shoot? Did they do what's right? Did they do whatever? And they're on administrative leave forever until negotiations are set. That's what the union is for. That's their job. That's what's going on. I don't see the same between them and the rest of our city folks, okay? I see it two different things. But I'm coming at it from the corporate side, even though I'm no longer in the corporate world and such. And my salary, since I know everybody else's salary, my salary is about $4,800, and I'm a business owner right now. So these numbers are huge, deserved for people that have earned it. And I appreciate it and understand. But it just seems like we are doing something for the rest of the population that we haven't had issues with recruitment and those kind of things coming. I would like to recognize longevity some way, but not to this extent, if that makes sense. Kind of jumped all over the place there.
Can I
Sorry
respond
about
to
that.
these two things? So one, I just want to clarify something, because when you throw out 3, 6, and 9, that seems like extraordinary. It always goes back to the base. So say the base is $1. So
I
at 10
understand
years,
that.
it's 3%, and it goes back to the base, so it actually increases by another 3%. It's not cumulative,
Yeah.
so it doesn't go 3, 6, and then 9. It's 3% increments. That's just important, particularly for the public to understand.
Okay.
So you're not getting a 9% bump on the 6% bump. You're getting an additional 3%.
Right.
So that's just an important distinction. Not discounting its significance, but it's a big difference between 9% overall and 18% overall.
Can you give an example, Jay, like a monetary example of what that looks like?
Well, that's how come if it was as discussed, that's why you see the retro pay, in the packet, for, 2026. You had one person at 3%, or sorry, 5 people at 3%, 4 at 9%. That's why it only increased 5,000. If it jumped up that much, it would be way more than a $5,000 bump. That's, I don't have a pay scale in front of me, but,
So if it was a 9% on the person, that's a 175,000, we're talking a
so, but no, that's not their
$15,000
pay.
bump.
So as Alicia talked about, that includes their PTO.
Okay,
And so you have to go back to what their grade and their step is, their hourly wage, and then that 9% would be applied to their hourly wage. But that's at 20 years. So not a lot of people. When Councilmember Lanterman asked about the internal services staff or the administration, we currently don't have anyone in the administration side that's been here longer than 5 years yet. Now, community development does, engineering, public works does, well, soon. It's not a large volume of employees. So when you talk about recruitment and retention, here's how it becomes a retention incentive. The fact that it is different, I'm not discounting the cost, but the fact that it is different, it keeps people here rather than going someplace else. That was one of the things that we talked about with our officers. The sabbatical, which was never discussed for other employees, so that is a significant benefit. But to an officer, I just started ride-alongs again. To an officer, that's something unique amongst our departments. Other departments recognize that, and now I think 4 departments in the state have started to adopt that. So with longevity, when you look at the 3% every 5 years, they're structured differently. But when we looked at it with Mayor McKee and Councilmember Lanterman, the reason that framework was discussed and adopted in the CBA was because that was median of the road compared to what some of the others. I think we had 5 comparables that we looked at with the police departments with the longevity pay.
But just to clarify, a sabbatical does not have an ongoing financial impact like a longevity benefit would, correct? I mean, a sabbatical, we're paying someone to take time off to stay healthy, whereas with longevity pay, that's forever and ever and ever.
Well, the sabbatical is for an officer every 4 years, so it is.
Right.
So it does have a significant long. If an officer stays here for 20 years, that's potentially 5 sabbaticals over the course.
But a pension, longevity contributes to a pension that's paid in perpetuity, right?
That's fair.
Right, whereas a sabbatical, we're paying for that, couple of weeks.
So you're differentiating between a compensation benefit and an additional alternative benefit.
Thank you.
If you look at the Rogers example, where it's $100 for each full year of service with the city, would that have a pension impact, or would that be a different category because it's not necessarily salary?
I don't know.
So that would be included as gross wages, so it'd be para eligible, it'd be pension eligible, yeah.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up was with PTO. And so to your point, in the corporate world, as you get different accrual rates based on your longevity,
right.
The city also has a program that's how that happens. Your accrual rate changes with your time with the city, and it increases over time. And then your max accrual is whatever that rate is by 26 pay periods over the year. And your max accrual, if you have anything in excess of your max accrual at the end of the year, you're only allowed to roll over your max accrual. So I'll use me as an example. My accrual rate is 7.7, roughly, per pay period, 7.7 hours. That equates to roughly 200 hours a year. And then if I have more than 200 hours a year on December 31st, I lose it, and only 200 hours goes forward. Does that? So if I have not used, when you talk about incentivizing, if I have not used it, I lose it.
Which benefit was that? I'm sorry.
PTO. paid
PTO,
time off.
okay, thank you.
So that incentivizes us to use it, and HR does a great job of communicating with leadership to ensure that folks are aware of where they're at on their PTO, so it doesn't show up as December 25th and we're saying we need you to use 60 hours before December 31st, which isn't feasible. And so it's discussed, it's monitored, and from where we were when I started to where we're at now, I think people are doing a pretty good job of taking their PTO.
You know, according to the compensation report, though, I mean, I have one public works employee who's banked 381 hours of PTO time. But when does the lose it kick in?
So his accrual rate is different than mine. So as I said, it goes up. So I'm at a 5-year rate, which is roughly 7.7 hours per pay period. And then it goes up, what is the?
So for that individual that you're referencing, they would lose their excess at the end of the year, so December 31st. And just looking at the language that's in the handbook, I believe their cap is at 322 hours.
So any hours in excess of 322 hours, when they reach the end of the year, they lose those hours and the 322 rolls over.
Okay. And that's a liability of just over $20,000, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I do want to point out that PTO is earned, you know, like I said, so it is a earned benefit. It's not a, I just wanted to emphasize that one, because as they've earned it, we also want to try and incentivize people to use it.
So, but longevity is not earned, correct?
Well, I think it could be argued that it is earned with loyalty to the city at 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. I think trying to communicate that what has happened is you can no longer move forward on the pay scale when you've reached, we have 8 steps on our pay scale. And so when you've hit the top of your pay scale, at say it's year 8, so if I started at year 1 at step 1, at year 8, now I'm at year 15, and we have had cost of living adjustments, which is very helpful with the way that the economy has happened. But I came from the federal government, where I went for like 6 years without a COLA adjustment. And that was pretty common across the board. But also the economy was different than it is right now. And so as the cost of living adjustments change things, if I'm at step 8, we could have somebody at the same pay for 8 years. And so incentivizing them and saying, hey, it's worth another 3%. You know, so our steps are 4%, if you weren't tracking that. Step 1 through 7 are 4%. And we recognized as we were implementing it that that was going to put some people at a loss when we implemented it to step 8. So step 8 is 5%. Okay, so 1 through 7 is a 4% increase. Step 8 is at 5%. Now, I'm at step 8, and I don't get any change in my pay ever. But the economy continues to change. So if I'm on Social Security, I'm on a fixed income. It's been going between 1.5% and 3% increase. They're getting cost of living adjustments. So a 3% increase at year 10, and an additional 3% at 15, and an additional percent at 20 years, earned commitment to the organization at 5-year increments. That seems like a reasonable cost to the city for continued service. And if they weren't good employees, they wouldn't still be here.
Can I just clarify something? You said you weren't getting, if you topped out, you weren't getting any increases. You're talking about step increases,
yeah.
not, so they would still be getting COLA increases each year,
As long as
just
a
not
COLA
step.
happens, but if a COLA doesn't happen, which there's been seasons here, I've talked to employees, you know, a COLA is not guaranteed, and a step increase is not guaranteed. And so as prices continue to increase, every other if you're on a pension, most pensions have some sort of cost of living adjustment. A 3% increase for 5 years of commitment to the organization doesn't seem unreasonable.
If I could comment on that, and I agree, I don't think that that is unreasonable. But earlier I commented that, you know, your position, starting from before you got here, went from $135,000 up to $183,000, just over a few years. A public works position increased from 119 to 164,000. An hourly public works employee increased from 116,000 to $148,000. So, you know, this is, you know, these are increases between $27,000 to almost $40,000 over a period of less than 5 years. Is that not enough?
So that's an interesting question. I would say that as I came in, part of the reason the last CBA, there was a 21% increase over the course of 3 years for the police officers because the pay system was so out of whack with the rest of our comparables. And similarly, the reason we did a compensation and classification study is because we had some positions that were very much out of whack. And so when you talk about a change in compensation, I would say that there was a problem that, in some cases, that has been corrected.
Well,
You're not gonna see
you'll
those
agree with
jumps.
me, though, that police officers are often threatened with arrest for doing their jobs, right? So that's a added risk to that position, right?
Absolutely, I have nothing to say about the risk the police officers have.
And I assume, though, that 27% to 40% increases, you know, I'm not a business expert, but I don't know of any company that's paying that to its employees. Are you aware of any?
I don't know any companies that were necessarily as out of whack with the system that they were in order to have to correct it that much.
We were significantly out of whack.
I would like to add that the annual gross pay that you're looking at, Councilmember Langerman, it does include overtime pay. And the Public Works Department, they did just adopt an on-call standby pay policy in 2024.
What policy?
On-call
Oh.
standby pay policy to help address some of those overtime costs, so. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else on this? Otherwise, I know there was a couple desires to have additional feedback or additional
Yeah,
information
so
brought
I
back.
think,
Just
Councilmember Friedrich, did you respond to the question? Does this want to support longevity?
Yeah, I guess I'd like more information. I'm not opposed to increasing pay in maybe not as longevity, because I feel like longevity also is in perpetuity. It's forever. And I feel like with all of the comp and class studies we have done to get our employees up to where they need to be, and with the continued 4% step increase, I think is huge because many cities don't have that. I think the 3.5% COLA is also, I mean, I agree with you. You don't know what COLA is going to be every year, but for those
Can I make one comment, Councilor? That those employees that we're talking about wouldn't see the 4% step increase. These are employees that are no longer progressing. They've
topped
reached,
out.
they've topped out.
Right. So I was going to ask, when we reviewed the comp and class study, and I think I mentioned this when we were approving it, but why did we only go out 8 years? When we knew we had staff that had been here that long and we knew they were going to be topping out at a certain level, why didn't we consider going out 15 years or something farther versus just 8 years, since we do have a substantial amount of staff that have been here for quite some time? What I was saying is I'm not opposed to increasing, but I just don't know if longevity is the answer. For me, it could be something more geared towards, I mean, we have all sorts of different certifications in public works, like CDLs, and those have to be renewed so often. I think that would be a great perk for them to be compensated for having that certification. Is that
So
is that
incentive pays, is that what I hear you
is that a
saying?
requirement in their job
The
description?
CDL is a requirement.
It's a
in the job
requirement, so
description.
it is included then, it would have been included as an item for
When
the
it was
cost, so maybe
created.
that's a poor example.
And we do have some roles, there are different roles that lend themselves, when you talk about incentive pays, to a lot of opportunities for certifications, and also working a schedule that provides the opportunity in order to pursue those certifications. Manual labor isn't one of those that provides a lot of opportunities to get different types of certifications beyond what the scope of the responsibilities are. And even if you did have the opportunity or did have a certification to pursue, with the demands that they have, they don't have the time professionally to do it. And so while we talk about professional development, we have been able to get them to do to pursue some other professional development opportunities, but they're very niche. You know, we just sent some folks down in order to learn how to use our new street sweeper and those sorts of things. But it's very practical and necessary, whereas there's some other opportunities where you can expand your knowledge and do a certification. I think about HR has lots of SHRM opportunities where you can do niche. City clerk is an example where you can do that. The Public Works Department in particular, and I'd even say the Community Development Department doesn't have a lot of opportunities like that.
I have one more question. And it's something that Councilmember Nichols had mentioned about just like during the negotiations, since we have different people that help with negotiations each time we go through a negotiation, is it made apparent at the start of the negotiations that this is for the police department, but it's really for the whole city? So there's things that you're going to be looking at and approving or potentially negotiating that will also be applicable because of the equity piece to the entire city? Or is that something that isn't discussed? Because I think it should be. Because if that's something that is really, truly what we're going to start doing, if that's what we decide as a council, then I think that should be something that is reiterated at the start of each negotiation, that whoever's on that staff, you know, be cognizant of these specific benefits.
With council, the
Yeah,
council members
well,
on it?
like, I think the people that are on the negotiating committee need to be aware of that. Like,
I
the
was
question is,
definitely aware of
were
that.
we aware of that?
So
I was.
in this negotiation, I did talk about longevity pay being a priority and the timing, this being the timing for it, for other employees. That was the only one. We didn't talk about the recruitment and retention incentive that we had, because that was a last minute change at the request in order to get the CBA over, that rollover thing. So really longevity was the only one that we did discuss, and I talked about the importance of it to other employees during the process.
You know,
Someone
one,
here- sorry, go ahead.
just one solution could be if an employee wants cop benefits, they can go to cop school and apply to be a cop, right? I'm just saying that could be a solution.
That creates different problems.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think there's the request for all the benefits that are in the CBA, just the longevity pay.
So is there additional information that council has needed, that we need to come back with, or do we need
I
a?
think staff has direction. It sounds like there's support for something, and there's additional data that council is requesting. So at this time, question 2 is not relevant, so.
The section 2 handbook?
it-
Oh, question 2 of yours.
Yeah, question 2 was, if you're in favor of
If you're
it,
in
what's the
favor.
effective
Yeah, that
date?
makes more sense, gotcha, okay, so you'll come, council or staff will come back with that. Then we'll go on to B.
And I would like, if it exists, I would like historical compensation for
I have that
office.
written down.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Section, or schedule item B, section 2 handbook amendments.
So, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, July 2025, Section 1 amendments were brought to the council for approval, and they were approved. And now staff is bringing Section 2 handbook amendments to you. Most of these updates are, they're just to ensure compliance with current laws and policy changes, so we have them listed out in the memo. We can go line by line to discuss what those changes are, or if there are certain areas the council would like to focus on, we can also just look at that. So how would you like to proceed?
Does anyone have any items they'd like to discuss in specific?
And if there are no items to discuss, staff is just looking for approval of Section 2 handbook amendments.
Give me a second, I'm looking at my notes here. So I guess the only thing I have is I'm looking for some clarification whether the edits are simply administrative, because it looks like a lot of the effort is just to clean up a bunch of messy language. Is this simply administrative, or does it also reflect a change in our reimbursement or compensation policies?
Is there a certain section you're looking at?
No, just in general, I mean, it looks like a whole bunch of red lines. It made my eyes go cross, so I'm just trying to cut to the chase here.
Yeah, most of it is just trying to keep up to date with the current laws and policies and
Yeah.
practices that have been.
Yeah, and that's what it looked like to me, but are we granting any additional benefits to our employees
So-
Like
through
those are the
this?
only things that are
Minnesota
passed
paid
by,
leave tax.
Minnesota
significant.
paid leave.
Okay,
which we
And
have no
that was
authority over.
approved earlier, well, I think it was approved last year, because it's effective this year, so we had to incorporate that language into the handbook. The only thing I can think of off the top of my head right now, just looking at this, the PTO policy, so Ryan, if you can pull that up and down, and switch it over. Thank you. So bear with me, because there's a lot of red lines on this screen. What is changing is staff is recommending eliminating the 4.7 hours, so that would be like the starting for like a brand new employee. We're recommending going, if you have 0 to 4.9 years of service, your accrual would be 6.2 hours per pay period. And then we're also, it used to be, well, you can see here still, it says that, you know, the STAR, the 20 plus years of credit, only apply to employees hired prior to December 1st, 2011. So again, to be equitable and fair, we thought we'd bring that back, just, you know, just to be consistent. You know, if you had been here longer than 20 years, we're recommending that you get that top PTO accrual.
Gotcha.
yeah, I just have one more thing. You know, I noticed that there's some language regarding travel expenses associated with commuting to city offices, buildings, or meetings. And it looks like that's been removed from prior versions of the handbook, and I would like some clarification. I mean, we're not paying people to come to work, to drive to work, are we?
No, so that
Okay.
was for the remote work agreement. We did update that because it
Okay.
did not align with practice.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else?
One question, and maybe you discussed this already and I just wasn't listening, sorry. Are we increasing our days per year by 5 for each category?
No, so essentially what's happening here is from your start date, at least currently, from your start date to year 1, you got this 4.7 hours per pay period. What we're doing is getting rid of that piece and then just making it so that from when you start until year 5, you just get the 6.2. So on the table it looks like that, but it's basically just getting rid of that 4.7, moving all the rows up.
So another way, we could have just eliminated the top row.
Gotcha,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
really what happened, is the top row got eliminated.
Thanks for clarifying, yep.
Anything else? Other than that, I will entertain a motion to approve updating section 2 of the handbook with the amendments presented in the
I'll
packet.
make that motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
On to C, which we kind of touched on. No?
No,
What is it?
Well, okay, I see what you're saying, yeah.
not even. Okay.
Different circus.
Yeah, I misread that, my bad.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, the police officer positions of Director of Public Safety, Deputy Director of Public Safety, Lieutenant, and Sergeants are not part of a labor union. And the labor union clearly defines many benefits that are unique to the Public Safety Department. At the November 21st, 2021 City Council meeting, the City Council approved a benefits letter, which is included in your packet, that memorializes benefits for non-union police officers. Staff is seeking council direction regarding benefits outlined below in that chart in your memo for non-union police officers. And a draft memo has been provided for council discussion. So in that table, we can go line by line, looking at each article that was included in the CBA, or we can just pick out certain ones if you have
I say we pick
discussion.
out certain ones if there's questions.
I have comments.
Go for it.
I view this discussion very differently than the broader longevity pay discussion that we just participated in. After reviewing the materials provided, it appears that many of the benefits being discussed have already existed in practice for years, and that this proposal is largely intended to formalize or clarify existing treatment. I think that distinction is important. This is not the same as creating an entirely new compensation program. Police supervisors and command staff operate in a unique environment. They carry many of the same responsibilities, risks, training requirements, certification requirements, and liability exposures as union police officers. They respond to critical incidents. They supervise officers. They make operational decisions that can have significant public safety consequences. And they remain subject to many of the same demands that apply through the police department. For that reason, I believe that there is a reasonable argument for maintaining parity where appropriate within public safety. In my view, this is fundamentally different from extending police negotiated benefits throughout the city. Police longevity and many other police benefits were negotiated through collective bargaining and have historically been applied within the public safety department. The materials provided suggest that many of these provisions have already been provided to non-union police supervisors for years. As a result, I generally view this proposal as maintaining consistency within the police department rather than creating this new compensation structure. Now, that does not mean that their compensation should not be reviewed. It should. And I believe that the council has a responsibility to periodically evaluate those benefits as well. I support our police officers, I support our police supervisors, and I believe that compensation decisions within public safety should reflect the unique responsibilities and risks associated with those positions. Thank you.
Anyone else? Or anything else on it? Maybe we'll turn it.
Can I ask a question? Okay, I have a quick question on the red line version on page 7.
Of page 7?
This is the PTO,
Yeah.
so actually page 60 of the packet.
Oh, sorry, yes. I was looking at the bottom of that, page 7 of that report. It would be page, the page is not showing up on my grant guess. It would be the red line version of the very last document of 2C.
What's it called?
It
It's
is
over there.
called,
The red line document.
it's the red line document, so it's basically the same version of the 2020,
Which is the
whatever
So
year that
page
was.
60 of the packet, I think is, you're talking about PTO,
Yes.
so it's page 60 of the packet.
Do we have what that looks like?
Yeah, can you hold that, Brian?
I'm sorry, you
Here
said
it
page 60?
Is it this section?
Okay.
Yes, it is, thank you. So I guess my question is we just reviewed the PTO section for non-union employees, and I'm wondering why this wouldn't match that if they are also non-union employees.
Yeah, we would try to bring it in alignment.
Okay,
We just didn't, we weren't sure on the council's direction.
gotcha.
great example of how it's literally just striking the top line
Right,
and putting a 0 instead of a 1.
yeah. So is this what's currently in the police department's contract, so it would also be reflective in theirs as well? Because I'm assuming they all get the same PTO?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yes, so we,
Yeah, correct.
So it would match.
yeah.
Could I ask one more question? I know I've asked, it's my understanding that our chief of police is working without an employment contract, and I know that I've asked if we can get one in place. Has there been any progress on that since we're talking about contracts?
I'll let him speak to that.
Yeah, I know that it's something that you had brought up in the past, so I have gathered samples and I can, certainly put an agreement together that might be
Good.
consistent with what others are doing.
Thank you. I just think that the supervisor of the department should have the same protections as the people he supervises. Thank you.
Okay, do we need any?
So are there any of the articles
seem
of
like-
benefits that the council has questions or concerns on, or would like
Think we're
follow-up
good.
on? No?
So I guess I have one question.
One?
So does this match more closely with what the police department's union agreement is, or is it reflective of what non-union staff receive? Or is it kind of both?
I would say it's more in line with what's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
And it's essentially an updating of the policy that was adopted in 2021, incorporating the new updated language of the new CBA.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're good on that.
Yeah, so staff will just bring back an updated red line at the next council meeting for final approval.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
D, city administrator review process.
Sorry, let me just switch over here. Okay, so Mr. Mayor and members of the council, in 2025, the city council had expressed interest in updating the city administrator's performance review process. For the past 2 years, the annual city administrator review has been conducted internally and presented to the council during a closed session meeting in December. In local government, it is common and best practice to use a third-party consultant to conduct the city administrator performance evaluations to provide an objective and consistent review process. So staff is recommending, so I've provided 2 proposals in the packet, and staff is recommending working with local government to re-envision for this process. If the council would like to go a different direction, we're also looking for that feedback.
I would have one additional request.
Go ahead.
If we can do my review in November instead of on the Truth and Taxation
Yeah,
Day,
that's
that
a
would
good
be
idea.
much appreciated.
Yes,
I think it's a really
November
good idea.
23rd.
You wouldn't want to be tied to taxation, would you?
Well, I am, but I don't like my review on that day. It's a very stressful day.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. Everyone cool with that? So we're good with that.
Can I ask one
Oh, yeah.
question? So I guess my question would be, we have a wonderful assistant city administrator and also an HR generalist now. Do we really need to hire someone to do this process, I guess is what my question is, when I feel like we have capable staff that could accomplish that?
My understanding, we didn't necessarily think so initially that we had to go up, but from what we found out from almost every other city we've talked to, is that that's what they do.
So the reasoning is severalfold in terms of the process that we adopted. One, it puts the assistant and the HR staff in a very awkward position, and which is not helpful for the council or for the organization. Having an objective person come in and meet with council and with department heads, and then assist with the goal setting, which Councilmember Nichols brought up during the last review. So you saw the steps different than what we've been doing. That's one. Two, one of the things that I learned, all of my peers, when I talked with them at the state conference, they were like, "What do you mean you stayed in the room the whole time?" That also is not best practice. Having that facilitated by the person so that you can have a candid conversation, come to your conclusions, decide, set your decisions, and then discuss, call me in for the next part of that. That's much more easily facilitated by an external person.
Okay, so would it be like a three-part piece? So like we receive like a self-evaluation, then we would meet with this person or this company, and then the third one would be closed session at a meeting. We would meet with the city administrator and then come back and the mayor would announce whatever the decision is.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
think the consultant can be a little flexible with the process, but the proposed process includes like the one-on-one meetings with the consultant will meet with the council and department heads, and then there'd be a survey put together, and then the consultant will combine the results, and then they would meet with the city administrator and then the council meeting. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah, so kind of like a 5-step process.
okay.
And this cost also includes the goal setting, the 7,000,
So that's the fifth step.
That's,
yeah.
yeah.
okay, which I think is really important.
So are you looking for guidance on choosing a vendor or
So I'm looking.
just whether or not to approve
Yeah,
this?
so actually 2 pieces here. So first, we had heard some concerns last year on the process, or there are certain goals the council would like to set this year for the city administrators to review that I can share with the consultant now? Or do you need some more like time to think about that? And then second would be to approve the local government re-envision proposal.
The local
The
government?
local government re-envisioned proposal. That's the name of the consultant company.
Right, as opposed to the other,
MGT.
Correct.
and, okay, all right, and why one over the other?
The cost overall.
Okay, yeah, because I see, so what is it, 7,000 versus
9.
versus 9. The one that costs 9,000, they have a much prettier brochure, and that's probably where the extra money is going. So I would be fine going with the more reasonably priced brochure.
Agreed.
Does the other one do, the goal setting as well?
So looking at the MGT proposal, the proposal that Councilmember Linchman is referencing would be $9,750, and that includes the interviews, closed session facilitation, reporting, administration. So yeah, it includes what the other proposals would.
Although I don't think MGT's included the goal setting
Yeah.
session. I didn't see
Doesn't
that in
matter.
their list.
Doesn't sound like it.
I thought it would be in the reporting section. I can follow up on that.
Either way, it's more expensive and
Yeah.
may not be in there.
Well, let's see.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just real quick, Alicia, you said a survey would be sent. Is that survey between the council and the department heads?
Correct. So.
None of the rest of the employees would be
Well,
part of that
I-
review process.
So in the past, other staff have been part of it, so I think that's something the council can decide if,
I would rather keep that.
keep the consistent process.
I want that process there of everybody has the opportunity to do an evaluation of our city administrator.
It wasn't everyone at every time, but it was,
Yes, so the process that we've gone is the department heads and then a chosen supervisor. Some have more than one supervisory person under the department head, and then a non-supervisory person, so 3 people per department.
I think that data over the past few years has been extremely helpful.
Yep.
For whoever administrator is.
how about a motion approving
I do
pending
want to
that
just
they are able to
clarify,
incorporate
sorry.
that?
The MGT proposal, it does say task number 4 during the closed session facilitation. It talks about clarifying performance goals moving forward. So it is included in task 4 of their proposal.
The first one still stands out to me. The local government re-envision.
Yep, I agree.
So, I'll ask this in terms of, it's an okay motion, that's in staff's opinion, then potentially make it. Approval of going forward with the local government re-envisioned, proposal pending or contingent on their ability to incorporate the additional layers of feedback, from other members of staff, like we've talked, like Dean was talking about.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like incorporating staff.
Yeah.
Expanding the scope.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. And then E, Hennepin County Property Assessments Process.
So, Mayor and Council, right before I left, there had been some questions regarding the assessment process, and I had shared some communication with you, with the county assessor. And then he had 3 questions that he had not been able to respond to yet prior to my departure. And so I did get a response from him, and I shared that with you this morning. But it's the specific details related to how many residents were contacted who had inquired about their properties, and then how the county responded, and what the evidence was related to adjustments, and then whether there's a difference in how they responded based on the last inspection date. And at question was particularly the concerns regarding having to go into a person's residence if there was a concern or a request regarding a considered reevaluation. And what had been shared with council previously was that in Minnesota Statute 274.13, subdivision 8, it states, so specifically they're talking about the Board of Adjustments. So if it reaches a point in which a resident is wanting to request or pursue an adjustment of their evaluation, there were 115 inquiries. Of the 115 inquiries, only 5 had progressed to the point that they wanted to go to the Board of Adjustments. Of those 5, one was going to be a reevaluation taking the value down. One was going to be a reevaluation taking the value that the valuation was low, but after they explained, one canceled. 2 are currently pending, and then the 5th, when they discovered, and Councilmember Lanterman and I talked about this because it's not intuitive to me that this is how it worked, but when they discovered that after doing the internal inspection, the valuation went up, they repealed and decided not to move forward, and so it isn't going forward. They canceled that, and so it sticks with the evaluation as it was. What Councilmember Lanterman and I talked about was if they've gone in and they've assessed and they've determined that it's a higher value, it's interesting that they could just simply say, oh, never mind. But that is the process. So 115 requests, 50 of them had nothing to do really with the valuations. They were really questions about the process. Of those that were questions about the process, 47, 47 had changes. Of those, 36 properties had previously not had an interior inspection on record. So going back to what I was saying about Minnesota Statute 274.13, Subdivision 8, going back to the board may not make an individual market value adjustment or classification change that would benefit a property if the owner or person having control over the property has refused the assessor access to inspect the property and the interior of any building or structure. And so what the assessor was communicating is that's what the statute is, and that's why they are, if something's going forward to a board appeal for an adjustment, if you don't do a internal inspection according to Minnesota Statute 274.13, Subdivision 8, then it can't be considered for an adjustment.
So basically, it's coercion. You let, the government is saying, you let us in, or else you don't get to appeal anything. I mean, I'm not as smart as our city attorney, but it kind of sounds like coercion to me. And just because something is legal doesn't make it right.
Well, the legislators, not the county assessor's office, set the state statute, and so I guess that would be.
That's true for the Board of Appeal. The county has set a policy adopting that same stance that they will not revise any of their assessments without allowing for an internal inspection. So they have the freedom to have a different policy than what they would apply at the level of the review board, but they have chosen not to do that.
So either the legislature or the county commission.
So one option that we could have is to request our county commissioner, Kevin Anderson, to come, and council could discuss their concerns regarding the process with him.
That would be awesome.
So
I would love that.
I can arrange that. Other than that, I'm not sure what else council would like of staff. And so it was requested to have this added to the agenda. So if there's something else that we can respond to.
I have a request for the city attorney, because I want his opinion on something, and I can share this, but from what I see in the Minnesota Department of Revenue, in the Board of Appeal and Equalization Handbook, it appears as though per statute, this city council has the authority to change a valuation of a property as identified by the Hennepin County Assessor. As long as that change does not rise above the total tax change of 1% of the total value of that entire tax classification. I don't know what that means, but it sounds juicy to me, and I would like a legal opinion from our city attorney.
It is an option for there's the two routes, the local board and the open book, whatever.
Mayor and Council, the mayor is absolutely correct. There are two different elections you can make. You have to make them at the beginning of the year, and that dictates which process you're going to use. You've elected the other process, by which you would turn this over to your assessor, who holds the hearings with individual property owners. My review of the statute itself, the assessor's opinion is correct, that, if access is requested and then denied, their hands are tied, they can't adjust it downward, or favorably, I should say. But, to Councilmember Nichols' point, there's no mandate that they ask to do so. That's discretionary, that's where they build in discretion. Now, what you can really do about that is whether or not you can sway anyone over at the county to change that position or alter that policy, or you have to separately contract for your assessor services, which currently are covered by the county. They don't charge you for them, so you'd be incurring those costs, and you would have to find an assessor that would be able to do it and would be willing to follow that protocol, which would result in more of an interactive process with individual owners, which would be probably a lot more work for them, meaning you'd incur even more costs from that. So it's just something for the council to consider. You certainly can bring it up with the county and raise the sort of due process or fairness issues you have, but the issue of whether or not they request a review is in their discretion. And one thing that you have to consider is if a property owner brings a list of considerations, I think these are important. I mean, the assessor has a different list of considerations. 9.5 plus times out of 10, they're gonna side with what they have because they have their own licensure to think about. So I don't think it's a process.
It's more adding a step in there that can then be overturned as opposed to replacing a step.
Yeah, so you could ask that of someone you would contract for, but they would know that they're contracting to take on an extra step in the process, so they will bill you for that. And what that process is would still be subject to whatever they think is appropriate, and there still would be within their discretion. They would have to maintain that discretion to say, I have to see the inside of this house to change anything. So it's a tough situation. Arguably, it kind of filters down from the statute, but yeah, that's sort of the hand we're dealt.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we have a growing elderly population, and we have someone from the government knocking on the door saying, I want to come into your house.
Can I comment to that?
Yes.
Actually, it's at the request. So the only reason the assessor's coming, those 115 calls were because somebody called the assessor concerned about their assessment. So if they don't ask anything about the assessment, the assessor's not showing up knocking on the door.
Sometimes they do.
Well, they knock on 20% of the houses every year.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, that's what I was going to add on, is that basically they have the appeals, but there's also the 20% consideration where they have to do these reviews. And so they usually just pick a section of the city and they follow it on a 20% basis and just do it in a rotating way. And so they will make every effort to do those homes as they can. So that's probably the bulk of them. The appeals are actually a smaller subset. But Jay is correct that in the appeal situation, that's by invitation, right? That's
Right.
to facilitate the appeal.
But that 20% is a surprise.
It is for probably, potentially for new homeowners, things like that
Okay.
haven't experienced it. Usually, my experience, the county does a pretty good job of explaining why they're there. They're usually wearing ID badges and they try to schedule it in advance. So there's some lead time to it, but yeah, it can be a little bit of a shock to those that are uninitiated to it.
See, I knew you were smart. Thank you.
I did a couple data points that are just helpful in terms of cost. So 3 years ago, it was $165,000 was our assessment. And so if you recall,
That's
council
about to go up.
encouraged me to work with, the county was considering this. And so we were one of several cities that tried to persuade them to take this on so that we could reduce our cost to zero. And we were successful in that endeavor. That's part of the reason why the county is doing it. But then it created a disparity amongst other cities that were doing their own internal assessments.
perceived
And as a
disparity.
consequence of that, several of those cities have stopped doing that. Most recently, Maple Grove and Edina were the most recent ones to stop doing it. Those employees have now become county employees, and they're still doing the same assessments, but now they work for the county, which is interesting. So there's only some of the largest cities,
Minneapolis.
Bloomington, Minneapolis, that are still continuing to conduct their own assessments. So the consequence of that is if we did desire to privatize, the private market has pretty much disappeared because 32 of the 38 cities in the county have stopped doing that. So we wouldn't really have good options.
And we didn't prior to that anyway. Right until the last
And we were part of the reason that we went with the county was because we were having a difficult time finding a reliable
When
vendor.
Rolf
to
retired.
service.
Mhm.
And and the other thing to remember, Mayor and Council, is that all of this is, of course, checked by the county anyway. They have oversight on anyone you hire too. So they, at the end of the day, the policies have to align enough with what the county is. Now, could you set something up like this? Probably, but it would be likely at great cost.
We could offer them longevity pay.
So if, what I understand, I will reach out to County Commissioner Kevin Anderson and request that he come and do an update with us. We're about to.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, and with that, no unscheduled items. Next meeting is, there's not a calendar there for like a year. I don't know why I
June
looked back
11th,
there.
next Thursday.
June 11th, next Thursday at 7 o'clock. Do we have a work session? No, we don't.
No work session.
No work sessions. 7 o'clock, June 11th. Other than that, anything else?
We have June 12th, right, for the,
Yes,
Field
June
day.
12th is our
12th is-
field day. We will visit 2 sites, Chanhassen 8 to 10, and New Hope from 10 to 12. Then we'll come back here to reconvene for a special session to discuss what you saw, and then for council to provide some guidance for the next step on the schematic design.
Those two were in our earlier tours, right?
Correct.
So I might meet for the reconvening.
Fair enough.
Okay.
We had residents meeting for economic development.
Last week. The last one, or you mean an
The
upcoming?
last one was business, the next one is
I don't have the calendar.
Just
Planning Commission tomorrow night.
planning commission tomorrow night, but isn't there a
I think that's the economic
at
development.
the
Yeah.
planning commission. The
economic development, is that one, as at the commission? Okay, got it.
Thank you for bringing that
And that's tomorrow?
tomorrow.
Actually, I think there's let me pull it up really quickly.
And Mr. Mayor, just real quick, we did have 2 people, this isn't
Sure.
something they can comment on. They
Sure.
were asking to comment, do we recognize them or not?
Yeah, if you'd like. Okay.
So June 9th is the Economic Development Open House.
Yep, that's the one, thank you.
And I'm sorry, where is that? Where is that?
That will be,
That's Tuesday here,
Is that
not
here?
planning commission,
yep, Tuesday, June 9th, 6 to 7:30.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Pam Jones, and I live in the development area. making sure they're fully compensated for all the risks that they take. And I'm struggling with, when I hear from my son-in-law, the original, when he first started to go into try and be recruited, there was like, I think there was like 600 different applicants that had come in, and this was before the George Floyd situation. They're struggling to get police officers right now. And I'm totally in support of equal compensation for people on the jobs that they're doing. I do set the police as a separate category than the rest of the different staff. Just working and just I worked in a Wells Fargo, and we got compensated, I thought, fairly. I would never have thought of a longevity. It's like pension, basically, which was something that happened back in the 60s. And I struggle with trying to equate the pay scale of what the police go through versus, again, I respect the people who are working here, but I don't think we have the same issue of longevity risk with the people who are the administrative staff versus the people who are risking their lives. I don't see that as being any equal in any degree. So that's why I just wanted to speak about that. I'm seeing, I think they're seeing a little more positive in terms of interest in being a police officer, but we want safety in our city. I want to continue to support that safety, and I just don't feel that there's that equal balance of, well, if they did it, then we should too. So I just wanted to speak to that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? That's it? Okay. Then with that, if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.